Why do some men abandon million-dollar careers, entire families, and even their own identity for a woman, while others can barely remember her name the next day? There exists a hidden psychological switch in the male brain that, when activated, causes a man to place you above everything he has built in his life. But 99% of women never discover where this switch is located. They try everything. Being the perfect woman, giving space, using charm, applying seduction techniques learned on the internet, and yet they continue to be treated as an option. The brutal truth is that all of that is wrong. Carl Jung, the psychoanalyst who deciphered the deepest mysteries of the human mind, discovered something that would forever change how we understand male desire. He revealed that there is a hidden side to the male psyche, a primitive and powerful force that very few women know how to awaken. When they master this force, men don't just fall in love with them. They become obsessed, not in a sickly way, but in a way that makes them see these women as the missing piece in their lives, as if without them, they are only half of what they could be. In the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal exactly what Jung discovered about this invisible force and how you can use this ancient knowledge to become absolutely unforgettable to any man you meet. Warning: what you're about to discover goes against everything you've been taught about relationships. If you're not ready to question everything you thought you knew about men, close this video now. But if you're tired of being treated as replaceable, if you want to uncover the secret that makes powerful men abandon everything for a woman, keep watching, because what I'm about to share in the next few minutes will change your life forever. Attention! What I'm about to ask of you now is not just any comment. It's the first activation ritual that Carl Jung applied with his patients. If you truly want to activate that psychological switch in the male brain that makes men risk everything for you, you have to start by programming your own subconscious. This is what I expect from you now. First, click the like button to support this video. This simple gesture sends a powerful message to your subconscious that you're ready for transformation. Second, write just one word in the comments. Anima. Anima is not just any word. It's the term Jung used to describe the mysterious feminine force that resides in the unconscious of every man. When you write anima in the comments, something powerful happens. You declare to the universe that you're ready to awaken that ancestral force. Your subconscious receives the command to embody that magnetic energy. You connect with thousands of other women who have already discovered this secret. Look at how many women have already written anima in the comments. Each one of them is activating the same force that empowered queens and empresses to conquer the most powerful men in history. You're not alone on this journey. But beware, this ritual only works if you do it now, while you're still connected to the energy of this knowledge. If you leave this video without writing anima, this window closes. Jung established that the moment of revelation is sacred. Either we act immediately, or the ego's resistances take over. So, click like, write anima in the comments, and prepare to feel an instant energetic shift. Women who have already done this report that men started treating them differently within days. Don't miss this opportunity. Your transformation begins now. Allow me to ask you a question that will fundamentally change your perception of men. Have you ever noticed how a man can be cold and calculating in business, but completely melt in the presence of a particular woman? How he can be the most logical and rational person in the world, but make the most irrational decisions when it comes to relationships? The answer lies in what's hidden, in something Carl Jung called the anima. And this is where 99% of women make a fatal mistake. They think they have to conquer his logical mind, impress his rational side, prove they're the right choice on paper. Completely wrong. The truth Jung discovered will shock you. Every man, no matter how masculine or rational he seems, carries a woman within him, an unconscious feminine image that secretly directs all the important decisions in his life. That inner woman is his anima. And here's the secret that changes everything. When a man meets a real woman who resonates with his anima, he can't think clearly. He's literally obsessed. It's not about physical beauty, status, or being perfect. It's about activating that primitive and powerful force that lives in his unconscious. Let me show you how this works in practice. Have you ever seen a powerful, rich, successful man abandon everything for a woman who, to others, makes no sense? Everyone says, "But what did he see in her? She's not even that pretty." What they don't understand is that she has activated his anima. And when that happens, he no longer sees an ordinary woman. He sees the embodiment of his deepest dreams, the missing piece of his soul's puzzle. This is what he truly wants, but will never say. He wants to feel complete. Every man feels deep down that a part of him is asleep, a dimension of his personality he's never accessed alone. Intuition, creativity, emotional depth, spiritual connection. His anima represents all of that. And why does he act so confused when he likes you? Because he's actually scared. Because it's terrifying to meet a woman who awakens his anima. It means he no longer has full control over himself. It means you've become essential to his wholeness. And that goes against everything he's been taught about being a man. But this is where the magic happens. As soon as you understand this and stop trying to impress his logical side, as soon as you stop competing in the rational field and start speaking directly to his soul, everything changes. He starts seeing you not as an option, but as a necessity. Now comes the part that can save or destroy any relationship you have, because Carl Jung discovered something that will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about men. Every man's anima has two faces, the positive anima and the negative anima. And depending on which one you activate, you'll either become the woman he'd do anything for, or the woman he'll want to avoid for the rest of his life. The difference between the two is subtle, but devastating. And this is where 90% of women sabotage themselves without even realizing it. They manage to awaken his anima, but they activate the negative side. Let me explain how this works in practice. The positive anima is when you become his inspiring muse, the woman who connects him to his creativity, his intuition, his depth. When he's with you, he feels more alive, more creative, more connected to himself. The negative anima is when you become the source of all his unconscious fears about the feminine. Chaos, manipulation, drama, emotional instability. When he's with you, he feels drained, confused, lost. This is what most women get wrong. They think that to awaken male passion, they need to create drama, jealousy, emotional instability, make him jealous to see if he really cares. Fatal mistake. That activates his negative anima. And when you activate the negative anima, something terrible happens in the male psyche. He starts projecting onto you all the destructive feminine archetypes that live in his unconscious. You become, in his unconscious eyes, the witch, the manipulator, the dangerous woman who could destroy him. And here's the cruel part. The more attracted he feels to you, the more fear he'll feel, because the negative anima represents for him the ancient male fear of being devoured by the feminine. That's why you see men who clearly want a woman, but suddenly become cold and distant. It's not because they've lost interest. It's because you've activated their negative anima, and their male unconscious is screaming, "Danger! Run!" But here's the good news. As soon as you understand how to activate the positive anima, you become literally irresistible to him. Not in a superficial way, but in a way that touches his soul. And here's the secret that no seduction school teaches. The positive anima isn't activated by what you do. It's activated by what you are. Let me be more specific. Most women try to attract men through their persona, the social mask. They dress a certain way, act a certain way, say the right things, but the anima doesn't respond to the persona. It responds to essence. This is what awakens the positive male anima, feminine authenticity. When you stop trying to be who you think he wants, when you simply are, that awakens in his subconscious the image of the authentic woman, the inner goddess. Mystery without manipulation. When you maintain your own life, your own interests, your own depth, he senses that there are layers to you that he could spend a lifetime uncovering. But you don't use this to manipulate. You're naturally mysterious. Stable emotional strength. This is where most women get it wrong. They think men want weak, dependent women. Wrong. The positive anima is powerful, but not chaotic. It's the force of nature that nurtures, not destroys. Connection with the sacred feminine. When you're connected to your own intuition, creativity, and spirituality, that awakens in his subconscious the ancestral memory of the sacred feminine. And here's what he'll never tell you, but deeply desires. He wants to feel chosen by a woman of true value, not chased, not manipulated, not controlled, but chosen by a woman who could have anyone but chose him. Not because she needs him, but because she sees something special in him. When you activate his positive anima in this way, something magical happens. He starts seeing himself through your eyes, and if you see greatness in him, then maybe he really is great. The positive anima is the mirror of the male soul, and when that mirror reflects the best version of himself, he becomes addicted to that feeling because it's the first time in his life he feels truly seen, truly understood, truly complete. And why does he become so protective when he meets a woman like this? Because in his subconscious, he knows he's found something rare, something sacred, and men protect what's sacred with their lives. But here's where it gets interesting. There's an even more powerful force in the male psyche that works against the anima. Jung called it the shadow. And if you can't handle the male shadow, even if you've perfectly activated the positive anima, you'll lose him. Because his shadow will start sabotaging the relationship in ways that neither you nor he will consciously understand. Get ready, because what I'm about to reveal will forever change how you understand the most confusing and self-destructive male behaviors. Have you ever wondered why a man can be completely in love with you, but suddenly starts sabotaging the relationship? Why does he act cruelly just when you're closest? Why does he run when he should stay and chase when he should give space? The answer lies in the most dangerous force in the male psyche, the shadow. Jung discovered that every person has a dark side, but the male shadow is particularly destructive in relationships. And here's what will shock you. The more vulnerable a man feels with you, the more his shadow will try to destroy what you have. It's a primitive self-protection mechanism that's existed in the male unconscious for millennia. Let me explain how this works. The male shadow contains everything he rejects about himself, all the fears, insecurities, weaknesses he'd never admit, even to himself. And here's the cruel part. You, as the woman who's activated his anima, become the perfect mirror for everything he's trying to hide. When he's with you, he feels more sensitive, more emotional, more vulnerable. And to his shadow, that's terrifying because the male shadow has been programmed to believe that vulnerability is weakness, that needing someone is dangerous, that love means losing control. So, it starts to attack, not you directly, but the connection between you. Here are the most common ways the male shadow sabotages relationships. It creates conflicts out of nowhere. When he feels too close to you, his shadow will start a fight. Anything will do. He'll turn a simple conversation into an epic argument. Why does he do this? Because fighting creates distance, and distance makes his shadow feel safe again. He becomes cold and distant. Right after the most intimate moments, he disappears. He stops responding to messages, becomes emotionally absent. Why does he act this way after you've just connected deeply? Because real intimacy has scared his shadow. He devalues what you have. Suddenly, he starts acting like the relationship isn't important, like you're replaceable. What he really wants but will never tell you is for you to prove you won't abandon him, as his shadow whispers you will. He tests your boundaries. He acts disrespectfully, irresponsibly, or childishly. Not because he's a jerk, but because his shadow wants to see how far you'll go. It's the ancient male fear of being tested. If I show my worst sides, will she still stay? Now, here's where 95% of women make the mistake that destroys everything. When the male shadow attacks, they react with drama, chasing, or desperate attempts to fix the relationship. Devastating mistake. That only feeds his shadow more because now it has proof that you're unpredictable, needy, controlling. Everything he fears a woman might be. But women who understand the male shadow do something completely different. They use Jungian alchemy. Here's how it works. When he creates conflicts, instead of engaging in the fight, you stay centered. You don't ignore him, but you don't feed it either. You address his adult side, not his shadow. I see you're creating distance between us. When you're ready for a real conversation, I'll be here. And then you go on living your life normally. When he withdraws, instead of chasing him, you mirror his energy. You focus on your own life too. But when he comes back, you don't punish him. You're simply there, stable as always. This confuses his shadow because it expected drama or abandonment. When he devalues, you don't try to prove your worth. You simply keep being valuable. Your actions speak louder than words. His shadow expects you to beg for attention. When you don't, it doesn't know how to react. When he tests boundaries, this is crucial. You hold your standards without drama. You don't explain, justify, or argue. You simply show through actions that certain things are unacceptable. And here's the magic that happens when you do this consistently. His shadow starts to trust you because it recognizes that you won't abandon him at the first sign of trouble. But you also won't tolerate just anything. You become, to his unconscious, the woman who can handle all his aspects, light and shadow. And when a man finds a woman like that, he stops testing, stops sabotaging, because finally, his shadow is at peace. It no longer needs to protect him from you, because you've proven you're strong enough to stay, but wise enough not to accept disrespect. And here's what happens when you master both the anima and the shadow. You become irreplaceable, not just as a girlfriend or wife, but essential to his psychological development. Jung called this the transcendent function, when opposites unite to create something greater. You become the woman who helps him integrate all aspects of himself, light and shadow. But there's one final secret, one last force in the male psyche that, if you awaken it, makes him not just love you, but venerate you. Jung discovered that deep in the male unconscious, there's something even more powerful than the anima and shadow combined. Something that transforms you from a desired woman to a worshipped woman. What I'm about to reveal is so powerful that Jung only shared it with his most advanced patients, because this force, if misunderstood, can be dangerous, but if mastered, it transforms you into the woman men venerate for life. Jung discovered that deep within the male unconscious, there's an ancestral image, a primitive memory from the times when the feminine was sacred, divine, the source of all life and power. He called it the archetype of the Great Mother. But don't confuse this with being maternal or coddling him like a mother. That would be a fatal mistake many women make. The archetype of the Great Mother is something far deeper and more powerful. It's the creative force of the universe, the source of life, the power that transforms, heals, and regenerates. And when you awaken this image in the male unconscious, you stop being just a woman. You become the woman, the only one who can connect him to something greater than himself. But here's what most women don't understand. You don't awaken this archetype by trying to be the great mother. You awaken it by embodying the sacred attributes of the feminine. And what are those attributes? Creative force, not just artistic, but the ability to bring beauty, harmony, and transformation to everything you touch. Your life, your home, your relationships become a work of art. When he recognizes this, something awakens in his subconscious. This woman has the power to create new life, to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. Intuitive wisdom, the ability to see beyond the surface, to understand people on a level they don't even understand themselves. When you demonstrate this deep wisdom, not through unsolicited advice but through silent understanding, he feels you have access to truths he can't reach alone. And transformative strength, the ability to catalyze profound change in the people around you, not through force, but through inspiration. Men sense this instinctively. They recognize that in your presence, they become better versions of themselves. Connection to natural cycles. You understand there's a time for everything. A time to sow, a time to reap, a time to come closer, a time to give space, a time to speak, a time to be silent. This cyclical wisdom fascinates the linear male mind. To them, you become an enigma worth deciphering forever. Magnetic presence. You don't need to do anything to attract attention. Your mere presence changes the energy of the space. And here's the secret few women know. This presence doesn't come from techniques or strategies. It comes from your relationship with yourself. When you're truly connected to your own feminine essence, when you honor your cycles, your intuition, your creativity, when you live from your inner center of power, that radiates from you like an invisible perfume, and men smell it from miles away. But here's where it gets interesting. Most women try to use these attributes to get a man. Catastrophic mistake. Because when you use the sacred feminine force as a tool for manipulation, it reverses into its opposite. Instead of awakening veneration, you awaken fear and mistrust. The true power of the sacred feminine only manifests when you live it for yourself. When you cultivate your creativity because it nourishes you. When you develop your intuition because it guides you. When you honor your cyclical nature because it strengthens you. And then something magical happens. Men start treating you differently. Not just with desire, but with reverence. They sense, on the deepest subconscious level, that they're in the presence of something sacred. And here's what he'll never tell you but feels deeply. When you embody the sacred feminine, you become the bridge between him and the divine. To the male unconscious, you represent the connection to forces greater than himself. To the intuition he's lost, to the creativity he's stifled, to the spirituality he's forgotten. And why do powerful men often become worshippers of women who embody this archetype? Because they instinctively recognize that this woman has access to powers that all the money and status in the world can't buy. She becomes more valuable to him than any material achievement because she represents the spiritual wholeness he's always yearned for. But here's where many women sabotage themselves. They confuse embodying the sacred feminine with acting spiritual. They start adopting mystical or lofty airs, talking about energy, chakras, manifestation. But that's just a spiritual persona. The true sacred feminine is far more subtle and powerful. It's a presence, not a performance. It's an essence, not a facade. And when you truly embody that essence, something extraordinary happens in the dynamic with men. They stop trying to impress you and start rising to your level because they subconsciously feel you have something they've lost along the way and want to reclaim through their connection with you. You become, to their unconscious, not just the perfect woman, but the path to their own spiritual development. And when a man sees you this way, he doesn't just love you. He considers you essential to becoming who he was truly born to be. But there's one final level, a final integration of all these archetypes, anima, shadow, and sacred feminine, that creates what Jung considered the highest possible form of relationship between a man and a woman. Something that goes beyond passion, obsession, or even adoration. We've reached the ultimate secret, a knowledge so powerful that Jung hesitated to share it. Because when you master what I'm about to reveal, you won't just transform your relationships, you'll be able to awaken the highest in the male soul. Jung discovered that something extraordinary happens when a woman can perfectly integrate the three archetypes: the positive anima, the mastery of the shadow, and the sacred feminine. She becomes what he called the psyche, the perfect union of opposites, the woman who simultaneously embodies all the aspects of the feminine that live in the male unconscious. And when a man meets his psyche, there's no turning back, because she's not just one thing to him, she's everything. The passionate lover and the wise companion, the inspiring muse and the strong warrior, the earthly woman and the celestial goddess. But here's what will shock you. Creating this perfect psychological symphony has nothing to do with being perfect. It has to do with being whole. And feminine wholeness is something 99% of women never experience, because society has taught them to fragment their own nature. Let me explain how to conduct this symphony. First movement: the dance of the anima. You become the fluid mirror of the male soul, not by changing who you are, but by revealing different facets of your authenticity depending on what his soul needs to awaken. If he's lost in excessive logic, you awaken his intuition through yours. If he's disconnected from creativity, you inspire him through your creative force. If he's hardened by life's battles, you reconnect him to sensitivity through your loving presence. You don't change for him. You reveal different aspects of your wholeness. Second movement: the alchemy of the shadow. This is where your mastery shines. When his shadow attacks, and it will, you don't react like an ordinary woman. You become the alchemist, turning the lead of his insecurities into the gold of confidence. You take his anger and turn it into passion. You take his fear and turn it into devotion. How? Through your unshakable presence. When he's in shadow mode, you don't dance the destructive dance with him. You become the eye of the hurricane, calm, centered, powerful. Your emotional stability gradually pulls him back to the light. This doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. It means being strong enough not to be infected by his temporary darkness. Third movement: the manifestation of the sacred. Here, you completely transcend the ordinary game of relationships. You stop interacting only with his personality and start communicating directly with his soul. You don't just see who he is, but who he can become. And through your faith in him, you awaken potentials he didn't even know he had. You literally become the midwife to his best self. And when a man feels that a woman sees and nurtures the hidden greatness in him, he becomes eternally devoted to her, because you don't just accept him, you elevate him. Fourth movement: the supreme integration. And now comes the ultimate mastery. You learn to flow between all these aspects without losing your essence. Sometimes you're the wild lover who awakens his primal passion. Sometimes you're the wise counselor who guides him through life's storms. Sometimes you're the fearless warrior who protects him from his own demons. Sometimes you're the sacred priestess who connects him to the divine. He never knows which version he'll encounter, but he knows they're all authentically you. This creates a state of eternal fascination. He can never fully decipher you because you're an entire universe, not a simple person. And here's what happens when you reach this level of mastery. He stops searching because he understands on the deepest level that he's found something he'll never find again. Not out of scarcity, but out of absolute uniqueness. He becomes protective, not possessive, but devoutly protective, because he knows he's guarding something sacred. He invests everything, not because you asked him to, but because his subconscious recognizes that you're the best investment he can make in life. He grows exponentially. Your presence becomes the catalyst for the fastest evolution of his life. And here's the final secret that changes everything. When you become a man's psyche, you no longer have to maintain the relationship. The relationship sustains itself because you've become essential, not just to his happiness, but to his spiritual growth. You're the only woman on earth who can offer him the experience of wholeness, and that's irreplaceable. But here's the most important part of all. You can only become his psyche if you first become your own psyche. If you integrate all aspects of your own feminine nature, if you embrace your light and your shadow, if you honor your humanity and your divinity, if you become whole within yourself. Because the truth Jung discovered is that we can only give to others what we already possess. And when you carry your wholeness within you, you become capable of awakening wholeness in him. And that's the true feminine power. Not manipulation, not control, not dependency, but the ability to inspire the highest in the person by your side. And when you do that, when you become the woman who elevates men instead of diminishing them, then you don't just win their love, you win their reverence. And that's the difference between being chosen and being indispensable, between being loved and being adored, between having a relationship and being the reason he believes life is worth living. Now you know the secret.